12-year-old Emma sat on the edge of her bed, her ears tuned to the soft, irregular rasping that came from the room next door. The sound had become the haunting lullaby of her evenings, ever since her mother had fallen ill. 3 weeks ago, her mother had started coughing, a dry, scratchy sound that Emma initially dismissed as a harbinger of spring allergies. But as days turned into a week, the cough worsened, accompanied by a fever that made her mother's pale skin glisten with sweat even in the chill of their poorly heated home. Emma's father had grown increasingly anxious, his deep-set eyes shadowed with worry. He spent his days foraging for any kind of work he could find, and his nights sitting by her mother's bedside, holding her hand and whispering words too soft for Emma to catch. The illness was a mystery. The local doctor, a weary man with silver hair and a gentle demeanor, visited often, bringing different concoctions and old wives' remedies, but nothing seemed to work. He mentioned something about a specialist in the city, but the cost was beyond their meager means. One evening, as a fierce gale battered the windows, Emma's mother called her into the room. Her voice was weak, barely above a whisper. "Emma," she said, "come here, my dear." Emma approached the bed cautiously, taking her mother's cool, damp hand into hers. "Yes, Mom?" "I need you to listen carefully," her mother said, her eyes searching Emma's face. "There's something important I haven't told you about my condition." Emma nodded, her heart thudding painfully against her ribs. "It's not just sickness, Emma. It's something more," her mother continued, her voice trembling. "I didn't want to frighten you, but you must know. Strange things have been happening since I got sick. At night, I hear voices, whispers that don't sound human. They come from the walls, the floors, everywhere." Emma's eyes widened in fear, but she squeezed her mother's hand, trying to provide some comfort. "What do the voices say?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "They speak of another world, a darker world that lies close to ours," her mother explained, her breath hitching. "They want something from me, Emma, something I don't understand." The room suddenly felt colder, as if the storm outside had seeped through the walls. Emma shivered, pulling the thin blanket up to her mother's chin. "What can we do, Mom? How can we stop them?" Her mother shook her head slowly, her eyes sad. "I don't know, my love, but we need to find out before it's too late." That night, the storm raged on, the wind howling like the voices her mother described. Emma lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with fear and confusion. She knew one thing for certain: she would do anything to save her mother. Whatever it took, whatever the cost, the mystery of the illness and the voices that haunted the dark would have to be unraveled, and soon. Emma was not ready to give up, not yet. As dawn broke, the storm finally began to relent, the fierce wind diminishing to a gentle whisper. The first rays of sunlight pierced through the cracks in Emma's curtains, casting long, thin shadows across her room. Despite the apparent calm outside, inside, the house remained tense and uneasy. After a restless night filled with strange, half-remembered dreams, Emma rose from her bed, determined to take action. She dressed quietly, her thoughts spinning. The key to her mother's mysterious illness lay somewhere between the real world and the shadowy one her mother had described. Emma decided the first step was to learn more about this other realm. She headed to the only place she knew that held answers to things not understood by most, the local library. The old building stood at the edge of town, its stone walls covered in climbing ivy, and it was there that Emma believed she could find some information about supernatural phenomena or unexplained occurrences. The librarian, Mr. Finch, was a thin, stooped man with spectacles that magnified his keen eyes. He watched Emma enter, her face set with purpose. "Good morning, Emma," Mr. Finch greeted, his voice soft as he adjusted his glasses. "Back for more adventure books?" "Not today, Mr. Finch," Emma replied, her voice firm. "I need books on ghosts, other worlds, and voices from beyond. It's for my mom." Mr. Finch paused, studying Emma's serious expression. Then, nodding slowly, he led her to a secluded section of the library, where the books smelled of must and mystery. "These might help," he said, gesturing towards a shelf filled with old leather-bound books and newer volumes that seemed out of place in the dusty corner. Emma spent hours poring over the books. She read about ancient myths, spiritual realms, and accounts of voices that whispered to the living from the shadows. Each book offered ideas and theories, but no concrete solutions. Yet, amid the pages of a tattered old tome, she found a mention of a ritual believed to protect the living from spectral voices seeking entry into our world. It required items that Emma felt could be gathered without much trouble: an iron key, a mirror, and a ring of salt. Armed with new hope, Emma gathered the necessary items from around her home and prepared for the ritual that evening. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the floor of her living room, Emma arranged everything according to the instructions in the book. She placed the mirror against the north wall, laid the iron key in front of it, and encircled both with a ring of salt. Her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination, Emma recited the incantation written in the book. The words felt strange on her tongue, a language she did not know, yet somehow understood. As she spoke, the air in the room grew thick and the candlelight flickered wildly. Suddenly, the mirror clouded over, as if fog had rolled in from the depths of its glass. Emma watched, her breath held tight in her chest. The surface of the mirror seemed to swirl, and a faint whispering voice emerged, clearer than what her mother had described but still barely audible. "What do you seek, child?" the voice asked, its tone neither malevolent nor kind. Emma steadied herself, her voice firm. "I seek to protect my mother, to stop the voices that torment her. Tell me what I must do." The mirror paused, the swirling fog within it pulsing as if considering her request. "The path you choose is fraught with peril, young one," it warned. "The voices are not easily silenced, but there is a way to shield her, to keep the darkness at bay. You must." The room shook slightly, books tumbling from shelves, as if something powerful had taken note of Emma's actions. She waited, gripping the edges of the table, ready to hear what the mirror would reveal next. The voice in the mirror grew more distinct, as if gaining strength from Emma's resolve. "To protect her, you must find the heart of the hollow, a gem said to hold the essence of the boundary between worlds. It lies hidden in the depths of Old Widow's forest, guarded by the spirits that dwell there." Emma's eyes widened. The Old Widow's forest was notorious in town legends, a place where shadows moved of their own accord and few dared to tread. But the determination to save her mother steeled her resolve. "How will this gem protect my mom?" she asked, her voice echoing slightly against the stone walls of the library. "The gem can be used to forge a barrier, a shield against the encroaching darkness," the voice replied. "But be warned, retrieving it is perilous, and the spirits will not part with it willingly." Emma nodded, understanding the risks. As she prepared to end the ritual, the candle flames suddenly shot up, casting elongated shadows against the walls. The mirror's surface cleared, and the voice faded away, leaving Emma alone with the flickering candlelight and a heavy silence. She packed away the ritual items and headed home. The way to the forest led her past her house, where she paused to check on her mother. Her father met her at the door, his face lined with worry. "She's worse, Emma," he whispered, his voice strained. "I don't know if she'll make it through the night." Emma hugged her father, her mind racing with fear and urgency. "I'm going to fix this, Dad, I promise." Without explaining further, she grabbed a flashlight and a sturdy stick and headed to the forest. The woods were as sinister as the stories proclaimed, with gnarled trees that seemed to watch her every move and a thick mist that muffled sound, making the forest feel unnaturally silent. Emma's heart pounded as she ventured deeper, guided by an inexplicable pull towards the heart of the forest. Hours passed, and the forest seemed endless. Just as despair began to creep into her thoughts, Emma stumbled upon a clearing. In its center, bathed in moonlight, was a pedestal cradling a gem that pulsed with a deep blue light, the heart of the hollow. As she stepped forward, shadows stirred around her. Whispering voices rose, growing louder, angrier. They swirled around her, pressing in with chilling malice. "Leave the gem," they hissed, "or be forever lost." Emma gripped the stick tightly, her resolve hardening. "I need it to save my mother," she declared boldly, stepping into the clearing. The shadows recoiled slightly, then surged forward. But as they did, a brilliant light burst from Emma's pocket, the iron key from the ritual. It shone with a pure white light, casting the shadows back. Seizing the moment, Emma rushed forward, grabbed the gem, and ran as fast as she could out of the forest, the key's light protecting her from the pursuing spirits. Breathless, she arrived back home just as dawn was breaking. Her mother lay pale and still in her bed, her breath shallow. Emma placed the gem on her mother's chest and whispered the words the mirror had given her. The gem glowed softly, its light spreading over her mother's form. Slowly, the pallor began to fade from her cheeks, and her breathing eased. Emma watched, tears of relief and exhaustion running down her face. Her mother's eyes fluttered open, meeting Emma's. "Emma," she whispered, a trace of strength returning to her voice. "I'm here, Mom," Emma said, squeezing her mother's hand. "You're going to be okay." As her mother recovered, whispers about Emma's bravery spread through the town. However, in the depths of Old Widow's forest, the shadows whispered of revenge, hinting at a darkness that was not yet fully quelled. Emma knew the peace might be temporary, but for now, she had saved her mother, and that was all that mattered. Yet in the back of her mind, she prepared for the possibility that one day, she might have to face the forest once more. Thank you for listening to my channel.